So she was obviously quiet, which created that atmosphere of stillness. She wanted a second opinion, which she could have just said. So we went to another room, and obviously there was another midwife. And she said something along the line of, would you agree, or do you see what I see? Sat down, and they said, right, we feel that there is something wrong with the structure of your baby's heart. There are two huge holes in the septum, which is the middle, which separate the two chambers of the heart, which means that the blood is constantly mixing. And perimortem cesarean is a cesarean on a deceased mum, which aims at saving the baby's life. And so further, I think, okay, this is final now, because I know that they think I'm dead. And they started the cesarean without anesthesia. So I just felt the scalpel cutting through my skin. Neat.
Hello and welcome to the podcast Love, Life and Loss. Today we have the amazing Maëla joining us. Please, would you like to introduce yourself for us, Maëla?
Hello, my name is Maëla. I'm born in France. I've been in the UK 25 years, and I am the mother of 3 living children and 5 angel babies. And I'm also a midwife.
Thank you for joining us today, and I really appreciate it. So would you like to tell us your story from the start, whatever that looks like to you?
Yes, I think in a non-traditional way, I'm going to start with the end, which is where I am now. If you told me many years ago that I would be doing this when I was in the midst of my grief, I would have probably laughed at you and say, no, I am not going to do that. So I think with all these podcasts, certainly what my message is hope. Like, there is a time where you might feel able to do things, where you might be able to smile again, where you might be able to share your story with other people. And this is where I am now. And I think it's extraordinary, and it warms my heart because it makes me feel that my children didn't die in vain, and they've given me an inner strength that I didn't know I have, in order to make sure that other people maybe out there feel less lonely about what's happening to them. So in terms of sort of pregnancy and babies, I think I've always wanted children. I remember being a child and thinking I want to be a mother. There was pictures everywhere of my mum breastfeeding. Like, being a mother was like a very big thing, and I thought that's definitely the one for me. So at 28, I got pregnant the first time, and it was very straightforward pregnancy. I carried on working right till the end, and I had a lovely little boy 17 years ago. Then I had another baby 2 years later. Again, straightforward pregnancy. A bit more tired because I had an 18-month-old to run after, but fine. Baby was fine. I was fine. And my daughter's going to be 15 now. And then in the midst of all that, we had a bereavement in the family, and I didn't love what I was doing. I used to work in a bank and sell loan to companies. It was a very misogynist world. So a lot of men that didn't understand why somebody that had 2 children would be working or wanting to work. And I had 2 children in a row. So I came back from one maternity leave, got pregnant again. And, things being said like, how many more you're going to have, and all that kind of stuff. And I think the bereavement was the point where I thought life is very short. And if that happened to me, what would I regret? And I thought, I don't like what I do for work. I don't hardly see my children. And the pregnancies kind of ignited in me that desire to be a midwife. I was like, this is what I'm meant to do. And talking to my mum is something I had said when I was little that I don't recall, that I either wanted to be a midwife or an obstetrician. And I think that the thought of studying 11 years to be a doctor, probably at 16, didn't sit very well with me. And I thought, no, I'm not doing that. So I kind of buried that away. But I guess when that idea came from the back of my head to the front of my head, and even more so catapulted when that person in the family died, which was a young mother, that left a child behind, a 6-week child, a 6-year-old child. I just thought, no, no, I can't. And I thought, okay, I'm going to resign and I'm going to become a midwife. This is definitely what I want to do. So I resigned and I tried getting in. And the first time I didn't get in, I think it was something like 1,500 applicant, 50 spaces. And the uni was trying to say, oh, why don't you become a nurse? And I was like, no, 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 no. I am meant to be a midwife. I want to be a midwife and I will keep trying. So I became a volunteer in my local hospital. I did health and social science course online just to try and boost my chance to get in. And I got in the second time. My children were 3 and 5 at the time. So that was like probably worse than giving birth. It was just a degree with 2 young children was like crazy. Managing everybody's diary and my own was bad. But I got through it.
I
And
literally take my
then
hat off to you for that.
I was just like, my head was just in a constant spin, like in a fast cycle in the washing machine. I don't even know. I mean, my mental health, I'm not going to lie, at the end of the 3 year suffered. And also, I was catapulted into the world of systemic racism. I mean, the last time I encountered racism was at school. So I'm from dual heritage. My mom is black from the Caribbean, my dad is white from France. And that was kind of childhood stuff, playground, children. And then I just entered that world, especially doing my degree, where I was never good enough and I was never working hard enough, and people wouldn't smile at me, but they'd smile at somebody else. And so my mental health was in shattered, actually. It was just like questioning my sanity by the end of it. Um, so that was that. And then I decided I'd already kind of in my head, I think in my heart, I always wanted 3 children. But I think because I had them close together, I didn't want to have that third close. And because that desire to be a midwife was so strong, I kind of put that to the back burner. And when I got the job, I thought, okay, I'm not going to get pregnant straight away. I just want to pass my probation, wait a couple of years. So we decided to have a third in 2018. And this is when the grief journey started and lasted altogether 4 years. So the first 18 months, I was miscarrying every 6 months, every time before 12 weeks. Looking back, I put that under the rug and I just didn't deal with it. I didn't get any emotional support, any psychological support. One of the miscarriages, I was at work and I carried on working because I knew what was happening. Um, and in my case as well, I suppose my body would never release the pregnancy. So every time I had to have a DNC, which is an operation to take out the pregnancy or the fetus from your body because your body is not naturally expelling it. So that meant surgery, which then meant scar tissue, which then meant also increased risk of problem in future pregnancy. Plus, I was older. So that was that. And then I got pregnant a fourth time, again, 6 months later. So although I was in my late 30s, I never had a problem getting pregnant. I was getting pregnant quite easily. But it was just keeping those babies that was the issue. So I got pregnant. It was fine. I passed the 12-week scan. I was like, oh my God. Um, I went to the 20-week scan very naively, although I'm a midwife. I know it's not a gender reveal. I know it's an anomaly scan. So, it's not just about finding out if you want to, whether it's a boy or a girl, it's to find out whether that baby's okay and healthy. I didn't take my partner with me. I was like, that's fine. I'll just bring the pictures home because we had childcare to deal with. So I just went a little bit skipping in the field, surrounded by daisies. Like I just was, and I was happy to be 20 weeks pregnant. So I was like, I've done half of my pregnancy, never entered my mind that anything could happen. So I went for my 20-week scan, and I know that sonographers are quiet, and they tell you that. So it's not a surprise. They said, when we look through things, we're going to be quiet for a while, but we will talk to you. So she was obviously quiet, which create that atmosphere of stillness. And being a midwife, I'm obviously looking at the screen, and I suppose I know probably a little bit more than if somebody is not a midwife. And when it came to the heart, I could see the blue blood and the red blood mixing up together in the middle. So the blood with the carbon monoxide and the blood with the oxygen, they're supposed to not mix, and they're separated by the chamber of the heart. And they were obviously like all like it was like a mix of the two. So that kind of, raised my antenna a bit. And the midwife, instead of saying, I'd like this check or whatever, she said, oh, the sonographer said, the light is not very good in this room. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to take you to another room. I said, fine. But I knew at that point it was going to be some kind of bad news because there was nothing wrong with the light. She
Mm.
wanted a second opinion, which she could have just said because,
Mm.
you know, midwife or not midwife, I just gathered that the atmosphere changed in the room. So we went to another room, and obviously there was another midwife. And she said something along the line of, would you agree, or do you see what I see? And the other midwife said yes. So once the scan would finish, I sat down and they said, right, we feel that there is something wrong with the structure of your baby's heart. There are two huge holes in the septum, which is the middle, which separate the two chambers of the heart, which means that the blood is constantly mixing. Um, so we need to urgently refer you to cardiology department. Um, and unfortunately, we can't answer any of your questions. We can't give you any diagnosis. We think it's called a complete AVHD, so that's the technical name for it. And they kind of left me, and I left the appointment. So, like every mother, I'm just starting to Google, and obviously, it's not great. And I think, well, I've just got to wait till tomorrow. Luckily, they saw me the next day, so I didn't have too long to wait. So it was urgent enough that there was a big issue because the NHS we know is
Mm.
strained. So to see me the next day, they obviously were concerned enough. So I went to another hospital, which was the hospital I worked in as well, which was giving me extra anxiety because I like to keep work and my personal life separate. So I've always given birth in a different hospital to where I work. But that cardiologist or specialist was in the one I worked. So I went there, and obviously I bumped into somebody I knew. Are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. And obviously they kind of know why I'm here supposedly, yeah, but they're not really allowed to say, and they don't want to probably upset me. So they said, "Oh, see you soon." So I go into the cardiology department, another scan, sorry, scan, specifically on the heart, really, that one, because that's what was there. Um, and they said, do you want to know the sex of the baby? I said, yes, this is a little girl. And they confirmed that there was two huge holes in the wall of her heart. And then they take me to the side room. So the side room has got loads of different leaflet. It's got a box of tissue in the middle. And all of that I'm doing on my own because part of it was I was in denial, not because I didn't want my partner there, but I thought I can't carry someone else's emotion right now. I just need to get through this, understand what I'm dealing with, and then go home, regroup, and then we can have a conversation. I just didn't want anybody like rubbing my shoulder. I didn't want anybody to give me a hug. I just wanted to know what was happening. So in that side room, they confirmed the diagnosis of ABSD, and they said in a big proportion of cases, this is also linked with Down syndrome. And this is when I just I just started crying. I hadn't cried until then. And I just felt like it was another 20 brick put in my rucksack. I was already at full capacity, but it was just somebody lumping another sort of massive weight in on my shoulder. Um, and I said, okay. I said, in terms of the cardiac problem, what is it you can do? So they said, it will be a baby that would be most probably tube fed initially because they struggle to put on weight because they're burning a lot of energy because of their heart being poorly. Plus, with Down syndrome, other complications can arise that are not diagnosed at scan. And I think that's a very big misconception about Down syndrome children, I've been told before, they're cute, they're loving, they can live a long time, but actually they can have a lot of issues internally. They can have learning disability, which can go from mild to extremely severe. So it isn't what you see on the
Mm.
telly. It's a lot more complicated than that. Um, so I just went home and they said, okay, she can, and then she will have operation after operation after operation. The first operation probably wouldn't happen until she's 6 months old because she needs to be a certain weight. And because we know she's going to struggle to put on weight until she's that weight, we will not operate, which means that in that time, she's going to be poorly in hospital
Mm.
and intensive care. So and they said, obviously, the definite way to find out about Down syndrome is to have an amniocentesis, which is a needle going through your stomach to get some amniotic fluid to determine for certain whether the child is affected by any genetic issues. So I agreed to that because I needed to know. We both agreed to that. So I think it was another couple of days later, I went into an hospital, I had this done, and I wasn't really feeling anything much. I wasn't crying, I wasn't happy, I wasn't sad. I was just kind of a bit of a flat line going through it. And they said, I think it was a week to the results. So that was quite a long time.
Mm.
Um, and I remember getting a phone call on my way to do my food shop. And the lady said, are you driving? I said, yeah. Are you on hands-free? Yeah. I think you should perhaps stop. And I sort of knew at that point. I said, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. I feel safe to drive, so I'm okay. So she called me and told me that it was 99.9% sure that our daughter, had Down syndrome. And in the same breath, I said, when can I book in to have a termination? And she was obviously a little bit shocked. I could hear in her voice, and she said, okay, you need to stop the car, compose yourself, think about what I've said, perhaps have a conversation with your partner if you feel that would be best appropriate. We can put you in touch with Down Syndrome Society, so to make sure that it's an informed decision and you're completely aware, with also the British Heart Foundation, so you understand. So they were very good. I have nothing to say about my care with regards to this pregnancy because, yeah, they were giving me time, they were giving me options, but we had that conversation, I suppose, many times with my partner about, disability, how severe it was going to be. And it's kind of, I knew I was talking on his behalf.
Mm.
So I still sort of insisted on when can I come in? That was a Friday. She said Monday. I said to her, book me in. And if I change my mind, then I will call you. She said, fine. So in the same breath, I went to the shop. I did my weekly shop. I pushed my trolley. I I was just on kind of autopilot. I'd called my partner in the car before stopping into the car park, and he said, so what did you say? I said, I've booked in for Monday. And he said, well, we can talk about it, but we've already talked about it. And I said to him, as much as we talked about disability, for me, it was the combination of the two. It wasn't just one or the other. It was, her heart is really, really poorly, and the heart is one of the main organ that we need to be alive. But also on top of that, other bits of her are going to be unhealthy. Um, so for me, it was a crystal clear decision, a decision that now, 5 years later, I would definitely say no parent should have to make. And I called it a choice at the time, and I've learned since by going through therapy and life happening that I would disagree now with the word choice. I don't feel in my personal circumstances that I had a choice, and some people would disagree with that. But I think part of the issue around termination for medical reasons, so the professional shorten it to TFMR,
Mm.
is until you wear those shoes, you you don't know what you're going to be like or what you're going to do. So I sort of went home, we had a conversation, and we were both in agreement. I didn't feel like I was leading the conversation. I didn't feel like he was leading the conversation. It was 50-50. We were both in agreement. So then came, how are we going to tell the kids? Because literally I held on to that pregnancy until 20 weeks scan. I think I told them at like 19 weeks
Mm.
because of the miscarriages, which I didn't share with them. Um, at the time, I had the Down syndrome pregnancy with my daughter. They were like 8 and 10. So there is no, you know, they knew I was pregnant. They could see I was pregnant. I told them I was pregnant. We made a big announcement, and I would have to say the truth. Um, so then it's a case of you battling all these emotions and thinking, what am I going to do with childcare? So I called one of my friends and I said to them, can you have them for the week? Because it was like Monday, you're going to have the termination. Then they leave you for a couple of days with the deceased baby in your belly for things to start and for your body to get ready for labor. And then you are admitted 2 days later to give birth. So we're talking at least 4 days. And then you have your labor, which could be like any labor, short or long. And then you have the afterbirth and obviously that memories and all that. So I thought for a week, I'm just not going to be emotionally available. So I just thought easier than just sort of say, oh, can you have them for 3 days and then I pick them up or I might not pick them up. So I arranged that. And then on a Sunday night, we both agreed that we have to tell them. So it was a case of like sitting them down and really sorry, but mommy's going to go to the doctor tomorrow. And it's highly likely that your little sister's going to die. The doctors have said that she's really poorly. Her heart is not working. She's got Down syndrome. The only bit I didn't share because of their age, and also I couldn't face any opinion, I suppose, is the termination bit.
Mm.
So I said it's very likely she will die tomorrow, and mummy will have to give birth to her. And it was COVID because it was April 2020, like around that time. Um, so they weren't allowed in and out the hospital anyway. So it was just a case of, go through it and then sort of, so they were very upset. And obviously in their eyes, they were like, oh, but mummy, I've got a little girl that plays gymnastic with me and she's got Down syndrome. We could look after her, we could love her, we
Oh.
could, she'd be fine. And obviously then I'm struggling with, I've made that decision and you don't know all of it. And if they ask me as an adult, and obviously I'm talking on social media now, so they will know. And I feel like as adult, it's a conversation I would definitely have with them because they might be confronted with the same scenario.
Mm.
And I want them to think that all options are available. Um, so I came back on a Monday, I sorted them out the weekend, came back on a Monday, and I mean, trigger warning, I'm going to describe what happened, but I think it's important to describe what happened because for people that judge out there and say, why did you do that? And they haven't had to go through that. I think it's important to explain to people what happened and that eradicate, I think, the word choice, because who would choose to do that in their own mind or in their right mind? So you go to the hospital, you see a specialist from fetal medicine, a doctor. And so they do a scan, they confirm what you've been told already. And they said, so how do you want this to go? So I said, I want to see her on the screen one last time, because there was two screens, one in front of me, one to my side, and my partner was to my side. I said, I want to see her one more time, but the screen in front of me, I want it switched off when you're doing the termination, because I understand that you need to have a screen to see what you're doing, but I don't want to see it.
Mm.
And I would like the talking like to a minimum. So like whatever you need to say to each other, because I understand that obviously it's a medical procedure, you can't mime it. But yes, just sort of very minimum. And I thought initially a bit naively, it's going to be fine because I've had an amniocentesis. So it is a needle through your stomach, through the baby's heart, inject with something that would make that heart stop. And that's how, because I was 22, almost 23 weeks. So there are different ways of it to happen, and some people take a tablet. But in my case, I think because of my gestation, that's how the termination went. So the needle went in, and I jumped, and I surprised myself because I had an amniocentesis and I didn't jump, and they stopped obviously, and they said, "Do you need more time? Are you okay?" And I said, "I'm okay. I don't need more time. I'm standing by our decision. I just, I just need to sort of relax," which is not the right word, but so they said, "You need to be as still as possible. You do not move when we're doing this." So I just closed my eyes at that point, and I just remember crying. And I felt the nurses, because there was a nurse hand on my shoulder. I remember smelling her perfume. And the way I've described it, and it sounds really extreme, but the quicker you're still, the quicker you're still, and the quicker you take it, the quicker it's going to be over and done with. And I remember saying that in one of my therapy sessions, and I was like, that sounds like a rape to me. It I just described it. It's something that you so don't want to happen,
Mm.
but it's happening. So you just gotta listen to the person telling you don't move. Um, so it was horrible because she was fighting the needle, so I could feel her move. She was like dodging the bullet, literally. She was going, going, going. And all I heard from them is, "We need one more, we need one more." So, like, one more dose or whatever they were giving. And I'd also said to them, the last thing I want is I want you to say time of death and say the time so that I know what time she died. So eventually she passed. Um, I asked for one last picture as well. I forgot to say that when they showed me the picture. I said, "Can I have one more picture?" And I cried all the way through. I shut my eyes all the way through. I just woke up. After they confirmed the time of death, I was given a drink. I was given time to kind of get myself together. And then we left the hospital. So that was stage one. And then they gave me some tablet to take for my cervix to start doing things and come back on the Wednesday. On a Tuesday, I had to do my hospital bag. So I'm just walking around Tesco looking for sanitary pads, shower gel, flannels. And all I remember is, because it was COVID, there was arrow in the aisle for people to go a certain way to avoid contact with other people. And I must have gone the wrong way in one of the aisle. And this older man just said, "Can you not see on the floor? You shouldn't be going that way." And I was so emotionally dead that I couldn't even say, "Do you know I'm carrying a dead baby? And do you know I'm going to have to give birth to it tomorrow?" But I just couldn't even, my mouth couldn't even speak. It was just one of those moments that I just carried on doing what I was doing, bought what I needed to do, treated myself to a nice pajamas or dressing gown. And I came home, did my bag. And then the next day I went in, and it's effectively like an induction process. So they are asking your body to do something that your body is probably not ready to do. Um, so that, although I'm a midwife, took me by surprise as well, because it was a long and painful process. Nature doesn't spare you anything, whether you are 22, 23 weeks or 40, whether you're going to have a live baby at the end of it or whether you're not. You go, I don't know for other people, but I went through exactly the same motion. And my first two pregnancies, I was somebody that just took gas and air. I was begging for drugs. I was asking. I had pethidine in my leg, which is a morphine-based medicine. Following the birth, I had bruises all over my leg because that's how many injections I've had. Um, I was just like, I just want this pain to go away. This is just not going away. And I had two wonderful midwives that was just there, and they were like, "We know this is hard, but you just need to trust your body to do the right thing." My partner through all of that was kind of in and out the room. And what I want to say about that is grief, even within a couple, is totally different for two different people. And I know him because I've known him a long time. And I warned the midwife. I was like, he's going to be in and out the room. He might even go home at some point, come back. I do not want any comments. I do not want any judgment about why is he not here? Where is he gone? Just leave him be. And he has to go through that the way he has to go through that.
Mm.
And my labor was so slow. He went to work the next day, and I said, if anything happened, I will call you. And I think it's 2 hours into it, I gave birth, and he was he was there on time. So they asked me, do you want your baby on your chest? What do you want to do? And I said yes, but I think because she's going to be very delicate with her skin, I would like a towel. So I had her on my chest. I had loads of pictures again. I said, I want you to take a picture of everything. Whether I'm going to look at it or not, I just want a picture of everything. And then they weighed her, and then they take her away to dress her because I brought a little outfit for her and a little cuddly toy and some little notes that the kids had written for her. So she fitted in like a little Moses, like a little basket, like a fruit bowl. She was very small. She looked like my son. She was very beautiful. So I gave birth to her. They took her away. And then I was getting dressed after I had a shower and I started bleeding, like a little tap that's been left open. So I called the bell. And if I just sort of fast forward, I had a secondary hemorrhage, which is an hemorrhage once you've given birth. So within a few hours after birth, I was back in theatre. And it's because there was placenta still left, which we know, as in professional, health professional research, we know that premature birth, often the placenta doesn't come fully. Um, so they operated on me, they took the placenta out, and I did all my memories. We had a christened. The children could have come in, but because of COVID, we, and because of, I don't know, other reason that I don't really know, we'd said that they weren't going to come in. So we took loads of pictures, and like everybody that has had a loss, I left the hospital with a box. I was in the room away from everyone, so I didn't hear, like I said, I've got nothing to say for my care for this. I didn't hear any baby crying. I didn't hear any woman pushing a baby out. I was in that room. It was an ensuite. I had my own bathroom. I had a fridge, a double bed. I gave birth on a double bed. It was just as comfortable as could be. So we had a crescent and we said goodbye, and in my head, and everyone is different, I thought I can't keep taking her out, putting her in, taking her out. I just don't want to trouble her anymore that she's already been troubled. So I know that when I leave the hospital, um I will say goodbye. So we both say goodbye. um we called her Amore Novea Marie. um Novea means heaven backward, and the children chose that, and
Oh.
Marie because I'm French and that's Mary, and I'm Catholic and I've got faith. So, and yes, we came home. We had a couple of days to ourselves, and then the children came, and then we shared all the pictures, and they were beautiful. They were talking to everybody about their sister to the point that they took one of the picture without me knowing at school and were showing all their friends. Um, so I had to say to the teacher, I'm sorry, I didn't realize, and if it upsets children, then I was very open about everything apart from the termination. Um, and this is when I had a flow of maybe comments or feeling after the event. Is obviously, she showed the picture to my nieces on the video call, and I wasn't in the room at the time. I didn't know she'd done that. And my sister was like, "Oh, it's a bit morbid." I didn't really want my daughters to see that, and so it's one of those where you're dealing with your grief, but you really have to bear in mind other people's potential reaction. And I had people that would give me an opinion on the fact that it was determination. Um, how does that sit with your faith? Do you not think that this was brought to you by God and essentially you should have dealt with it? It was a weird time. And because it was COVID, it was even more of a weird time. Because it was COVID, the funeral got delayed because obviously there was a priority to bury people that had died from COVID. So she was buried in end of May and she was born end of April. So that was like 2 months. And it was just us. Obviously, if a baby dies before one, everything was paid for. So she had like a beautiful white coffin and she had the two ushers carrying her. Then my two children carried the coffin because they asked to, which again, I had opinion on that. Some people said that's just a little bit, again, somber. But they asked me, and I said, if at any point on the day you change your mind or whilst you're doing it, you don't want to do it, the gentleman would be there to help you. But they wanted to do it, and for me, that was the only time my three children were ever going to be together. So I just really liked that moment and cherished that moment.
That is
Um,
absolutely beautiful. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that
no,
I personally think that is absolutely beautiful, and it's such a credit to your children and you as a mother. The fact that they've asked to do that and you've honored that for them, and they're going to
no,
have that forever. So I think that is absolutely beautiful.
it was for me. It was beautiful, and I made them honorary godparents as well. So they were our godparents, and then they read a poem, and we had Amazing Grace at the end. And this is when I cried for the first time, I think, in days, like that whole, you know, leading up to it. I didn't have many tears really. Um, So then we stayed at the cemetery for a little bit. There was a bench and we took more pictures. And the priest was the priest from their school as well. So it was a familiar face, which was comforting. Um, and funnily enough, although I've had opinion from people, I'd never felt judged by my own faith. As in, I didn't think, oh, the priest is going to say he doesn't want to do the funeral because of the way she passed, or the vicar in the hospital is not going to want to christen her because I've had a termination. I've never felt that. Um, and fast forward again, for a year following her passing, I had three surgeries because there were still bits of placenta left. So when you have a termination or a miscarriage, they ask you to do a pregnancy test probably 6 weeks after. And I kept testing positive. And I knew obviously that I wasn't pregnant. But the what's in the placenta was triggering for that test to be positive. So I had several surgery, a couple of times there to stop surgery because I was bleeding too much. That was giving my body even more tissue, scarring tissue, and that year was difficult because one, I wasn't allowing myself to grieve because for ages, years, I couldn't say I've lost a baby because I felt that people thought I chose to lose the baby. So I couldn't even say I've lost a baby because I felt I was lying. So I couldn't say that. I tried bereavement group, which was all online, but like with SANS, for example, and nobody was in my situation. I don't mean I wanted somebody in my exact situation, but termination, it was people that had gone through years of IVF and lost a baby. And I felt like I was a fraudster here because I was pregnant. I was pregnant naturally and I had other children and I terminated the pregnancy. So I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. Plus, number two was the anger of all these surgical procedure and these people not leaving me alone to be pregnant again because I just wanted a healthy baby. I would not be told that this was the end of the book. So once I had all these surgeries, they were happy for me to try again. We got pregnant again, and I was just under 12 weeks, and I felt really unwell. I felt tired, lethargic, no energy. I just called the early pregnancy clinic, and they said, "We want you to come now." So I remember it was parents' evening. I left parents' evening, and I said to my partner, "Just stay here, obviously, because he had to stay. I'm going to go. I'll let you know what happened, and it's going to be fine." And I got there, and they scanned me, and it was an ectopic pregnancy. So I hadn't had my first scan yet. I didn't know. I felt pregnant. I didn't have any other symptom apart from that kind of dull, I really don't feel well, and I feel extremely tired. And they were like, if we don't operate, it can burst and you can die. So you're not going home. And within less than 2 hours, we go in for surgery. So I was like, well, what do you mean? I said, I leave half an hour and I promise I'm not going to do a run. I will come back, but I need to go home. I need to talk to my children. I need to talk to my partner. I need to bake a bag. And I'm not criticizing what they did because I know as a midwife that ectopic pregnancy could be life-threatening to the woman. But it just happened so quick that, yeah, within 2 hours, and they said, it's your right tube. The tube might have to come out. So I was like, even less chance to have a baby now. This,
Mm.
this is ridiculous. And none of these thoughts were a feeling towards myself of sadness and, oh my God, you've been through like 4 losses in 2 years. This is horrible. I was like, no, well, what's next? I need to get pregnant. What's next? It was like an obsession. I can't describe it any other way. So I had the operation. Thankfully, they saved my tube. They said the pregnancy was right at the end of the fallopian tube, so they kind of took it out gently and didn't damage my tube. Um, and yeah, like the kids were like, "What does this keep happening to you, mummy?" And I was like, "I don't know." Tension in my couple because it was like maybe we need to understand not what nature is telling us, but like there's a point you can't put your body through things like that again and again and again. And I was past 40 at that point. So I knew my eggs were not tip-top quality. I knew I had scar tissue, which increases your risk of losses anyway. But I just remember saying, as long as I've got a uterus, a womb, fallopian tubes, and eggs, I'm not going to stop. So this is how it is. Um, so that's sort of created tension, and I'm sure people will relate to that when you're trying to conceive whatever your circumstances. It's tension in a relationship because it's like a transaction, isn't it, really?
Mm.
It's not the emotion, it's not the desire, it's I want to be pregnant. And I just even remember thinking and saying to him, like, if we need to go through IVF and I need to get a sperm donor because you don't want to have intercourse, I will do it. I was just saying things that were absolutely irrational and crazy because I just wanted my belly to be full and I wanted my belly to be full with a healthy baby. So, yeah, lots of tension. We kind of got through it because we kept talking and we strung, obviously. Um, and I think the classic of when we're not really trying, like, you're not saying, oh, this is the day, Wednesday is the day, and Thursday is the day. And I think looking back, it wasn't even my normal ovulation day. So most women ovulate, I don't know, on day 14. And I think it was like day 9 or 10. So which didn't even sort of make sense on paper, but I got pregnant. And I got pregnant with my rainbow daughter, which is now 3 and thriving. And I was just ecstatic but petrified. I mean, you can relate to that, but
Mm-hmm.
anybody having a rainbow baby can relate to that. It's not, I'm going to go to the shop and buy loads of stuff. It's not, I'm going to tell everybody. It's like, I just want this 9 months to go as quickly as possible and smoothly as possible. And I just want to be fine the other side. Nature had other plans, obviously, because I keep saying to people I know, I never go somewhere on the motorway. I always take those countryside mountain track to get to where I need to go when people would just go on a motorway and be there in 2 hours. Um, so pregnancy was okay. We opted to have a private test. You can have a private test very early in pregnancy to determine any genetic issues. Um, and they told us the sex as well. You can find out the sex because obviously the minute the sperm meet the egg, it's either a boy or a girl. So you could find out that straight away. And that wasn't in vain. It was just, and it's not in vain to want to find out the sex. That's not what I'm saying. But in my head, I felt like if it's another girl, I I don't think I can go through that because I don't want anybody to think she's replacing her. I don't want in my head, it made more sense that it should be a boy
Mm-hmm.
for me to be sort of separate the two, which I was always going to do, but for other people to separate the two as well. So I got the genetic test back. Pregnancy was fine as far as genetics was concerned, and it was a girl. And the reason I wanted to know so early is I thought obviously it's a 50-50. If it is a girl, it's almost like I need to mentally
Hmm.
psych myself up and tell me that it's nothing to do with boy or girl. It's just, it was the genetic that didn't put together in the way that it's supposed to be put together. So I kind of got around the idea, kept it for probably 20 weeks and didn't tell anybody until we had the anomaly scan because I was like, well, what else could come out of the woodwork? Like, we've eliminated genetics, but I don't know, she could have four fingers and three toes, or she could be blind. I don't know. I thought I just need that scan. And I requested for the same doctor that did the termination to do the scan. And that's how much I am grateful for the dignity he treated me with and he treated my daughter's life with. I wanted nobody else to do it but him. Which again, some people find that weird. But I just felt safe in his hand. So I just went with that. Um, and he confirmed she was a girl, and he confirmed that everything, as far as he could see, that he had checked was okay. The brain, the lungs, the heart, the legs, the toes, the fingers, the eyes, the ears. So that was around 20 weeks. And then at 26 weeks, I was doing health visiting at the time. I was at a client's house and I was about to go. And I thought, oh, I feel like I've had a leakage. But I thought, I'm 26 weeks pregnant. Obviously, I've had loads of children. I've been pregnant loads of time. My blood is not going to be tip top. So maybe it's just one of those things where from now I need to wear a pad. Interestingly, that morning, I'd receive a free Always or another brand pack. And I thought, I have a feeling this baby is going to be early just because of my obstetric history. I don't think I will carry to term. So bit by bit, I'm just going to buy that things and casually put it to the side. So I said to the kids, by the time you finish school in July, she was due in September. I want my bag to be ready, like kind of 8 weeks before. So I had a pack of towels, sanitary towel, with me. And as I go up, I don't know why, but I wanted to look on the settee because I was embarrassed about having left a patch
Mm.
because she had like a blanket on her settee, and there was a little pink stain, and I thought, oh, not again. She doesn't know I'm pregnant. I don't even look that pregnant. I could see that in the front room, the kitchen was very close and it was laminate flooring. But so my instinct was like, just in case I start bleeding, I'm just going to swiftly move across to the kitchen. And then it was a pour of blood, blood products,
Oh,
clots. I couldn't even determine as a midwife exactly what it was. And I was like, I'm just having a late miscarriage. And I just, oh, she was like, "Are you all right? You're right." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm fine. If you show me the toilet, I'll sort myself out. I'll drive myself to the hospital." She was like, "Absolutely not. I'm calling an ambulance."
oh, thank
And
goodness.
health professionals often are the worst. Like, we don't want to trouble people because we know how strained everything is. And I was like, "No, no, 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 no. If you just," she was like, "I'm calling an ambulance." First time mom, early 20s. I would be grateful for my life forever because of that person. And we are friends now.
Oh,
So I went in the bathroom. It's like somebody had been butchered. She gave me towels, as in towels, like to dry yourself with. I just soaked through them. She gave me a new pair of pants because she had still had clean pants, brand new pants from having had a baby 6 weeks ago. And I said to her, okay, well, I need to let you know I'm 26 plus 6 weeks pregnant. I think I'm probably having a late miscarriage. So that she knew what to say to the ambulance. She went outside, waited for the ambulance. The ambulance came, two male, and I handed myself over because I'm a midwife. I was like, I'm 26 plus 6. This is my blood group. This is my obstetric history. I was telling them to scoop up all the blood they could see because I was like, I know they need to weigh it. So I was almost in charge of the emergency,
oh,
minus driving the ambulance. Um, I was messaging work and say, please cancel my appointments. I'm not going to be available. Apologize on my behalf. I was just in that kind of, I had an idea what it could be, but I was like, no, I'm just going to push that at the back of my mind and I'm going to think of something completely different. So I called my partner and I was like, don't worry, but I'm bleeding. I'm going to the hospital in an ambulance. Make your way whenever. I hadn't realized that as soon as I spoke to him, my manager's managers called him because he was my next of kin. And they said, you need to come now. Like, it's not a question of like, take your time, come now, because this is what the paramedic would have said to them.
Mm.
Um, Obviously blue lighted. Um, every bump I felt a move, so that was reassuring. But at the same time, I felt my stomach emptying, which wasn't reassuring because I was bleeding. So, kind of going to shorten the story a little bit, but I got to the hospital, handed myself over again. I said, okay, I haven't got my notes, but this is my history. This is what's happened. They've got the blood product. I said to the paramedic, I'm not being rude, but do you mind that I tell my story because then I can give them the detail that I know they need. They were glad I didn't give birth in the ambulance because there is nothing in an ambulance to account for a 26-week premature baby. So I think they were really scared themselves that if I delivered in that ambulance, the outcome wouldn't have been great. And initially, things were very calm. They said, we can give you medicine to stop the bleeding, and it could be that you're bedbound for a few weeks, but any minute, any days the baby stays inside is positive for that baby. We better in and than out.
Mm.
So, and then I just said to them, I think you need to check my pad, as in the pad on the bed. I feel like I'm sat in a pool of blood. Not a little bit. I feel like I'm sat in a pool of blood. And they looked, and they obviously things then changed. It became an emergency because, yes, I was bleeding. Small amount, like a tap again, not a gush, but it wasn't stopping. Those medicine weren't reacting. At that point, I'm getting weaker and weaker because I've lost a lot of blood and my eye shuts. But I'm conscious. I can hear, I can feel, I can see the light with my eyes shut. I can smell perfume. Um, and then obviously things started going from bad to worse, my blood pressure, so they giving me medicine to hopefully mature the baby's lungs because they've said to me before I became unconscious, we're going to have to deliver this baby today because your body's not responding to medication and you're bleeding. Um, so I knew that was happening. Um, and then, they gave me a medicine with, I think it's yeah, for babies to mature quickly. But normally that medicine should be given over a certain period of time. And it
Mm.
was kind of pushed straight in. And one of the side effects is that your skin burns from the inside. So I just remember that kind of me flinging around on the bed and my um vital observation then got really bad because my heart probably went too fast. Um, and I remember hearing, put to your left, put to your left. So I remember myself putting my hand on the rail and putting my body to the left because obviously then I'm a midwife and I understand what they're doing and I understand why they're doing it. At that point, they take me out the room, wheel me into the corridor to go to theatre. Halfway down the journey, I must have gone into cardiac arrest because they said we need to do CPR now. So they're giving me cardiac massage. My ribs are aching like hell. And I'm thinking, it's definitely not an out of body experience because I can't see myself onto the bed. I can feel from within my body everything that's happening. And then I hear, can anybody feel a pulse? No, no pulse. So a second round of CPR, no pulse. By then I'm in theatre. And again, CPR, no, no pulse. And I'm thinking, this is real. They really think that I've gone. And part of me was really calm because I thought, I'm glad I'm here because my daughter's going to be fine. And you know what? If it's my time to go, obviously that wasn't rational because I didn't think at all about my other two children. I feel like I've done everything I can. She's going to be fine. She's going to be
Mm.
healthy. She's going to be well looked after. And I've done what I set myself to do. And I'm happy. If it's my time, I'm happy to go. And then I heard, are we all in agreement that we need to carry out a perimortem cesarean? And perimortem cesarean is a cesarean on a deceased mum, which aims at saving the baby's life. And if further treatment like shocking needs to be done for the heart to start again, they cannot be done when you obviously are pregnant. So I think, okay, this is final now because I know that they think I'm dead. Um, and they started the cesarean without anesthesia. So I just felt the scalpel cutting through my skin neat. And I just thought, I need to scream. Like, obviously, in my head, I'm screaming my head off. In reality, a little squeal came out. And somebody said, stop, stop. I heard her make a noise. I'm sure I heard her make a noise. And then I feel a presence come into my head because I can feel heat coming close to me. There was loads of people in that room, over 20 people in that room. And she said, if if you can hear me, I know you're really tired, but if you can hear me, you need to open your eyes and let me know that you can hear me. And I thought, you're having a laugh here because I feel so weak. Lifted my eyelids, seemed like I don't know how, but I managed to open one eye. I saw her in the corner of my eye, and she went, "We are really, really sorry. We're going to put you under general anesthetic, and we're going to get the baby out." So I woke up. Um, Baby was fine, came out breathing, shouting, fighting intubation, thinking, I don't know what the fuss is about. I can do all of this by myself. But obviously, she's weighing less than a kilo, less than 2 pounds, and she is just under 27 weeks. So she needs to be intubated and she needs to go in a bag to keep her temperature and she needs to go straight to NICU. Um, and then my partner's in the room and he said, oh, somebody told me that you lost a lot of blood and you weren't well. And then they took my phone, they took a picture of the baby, and this is the baby. So that was that. And then the consultant came to my room and say, when you feel ready, there's no rush, but we need to talk to you about what happened. And I said, I can tell you what happened. And then she looked at me and sat on the bed. And she said, what do you mean? I said, my eyes were shut, but I could hear, I could feel, I could smell. And I just told her everything that I've just said. And her eyes just went
Like mine.
like mine. And she was like, okay. So she said, obviously, you're going to be in intensive care recovery for 5 days. We can talk more through what happened, obviously, when things have settled a little bit. So I had compression boots on both my legs because I was major risk of clotting. My rib was aching like hell. I couldn't hardly breathe, as in take a deep breath. I felt like I was breathing halfway because my ribs were aching that much. I had to have a scan to make sure that I didn't have any ribs broken because when you do CPR on an adult, sometimes you can break ribs, which is not a mistake, but it's just that's how deep you have to go into the chest. Um, yeah, my daughter was fine. I started expressing colostrum on day one, and I was having like massive quantities. I was just on emotion and pushing away everybody that dared to say to me, but you nearly died, or looked at me with a little puppy face and sad. I was like, no, 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 I'm not having any of that. This child needs to come home healthy. This is probably my last good egg. And I always say to her, you're my last good egg. Um, any negativity, I don't need it. She needs to be surrounded by love, warmth, positivity. If you're not on the same page, I'm really sorry. I even asked to say that to one of my sister. I ask you to cry in private. I ask you to all this emotion in private. I don't want to have to contain it. I don't want to. So she spent 69 days on NICU. She was labeled the boring baby. So I worked on NICU myself as a midwife. So I was scared, petrified that I was going to get that call generally at 3 in the morning saying your baby's had a bleed, your baby's had an infection. Nope. She had one blood transfusion because her iron was slightly low. And obviously, for somebody to be on low iron when you are really unwell is making you burn a lot of energy. So they said, just as a precaution, would you agree to a blood transfusion? I said yes. Um, we were due to come out on my due date. We came home 4 weeks before because she could breastfeed by herself, she could breathe by herself. Her eyes, her brain, her heart, everything was fine. So I was like, wow, this is good. And then I came home and then this was the kind of crashing down of my mental health and the beginning of another struggle. So then obviously I'm dealing with sleepless night because all the time she's on NICU, I come and go during the daytime. I pump my milk, I bring it, but I get 8 hours sleep at night. And then she comes home and she wants the breast every 2 hours, like any normal baby. So although she'd been alive for 3 months, she was acting like a newborn effectively. Um, we came home, she was just under 5 pounds. So that was like a big progress, but still very small. So she needed to be fed often. All of that was fine. I had milk pumped to last me until Christmas. We had to buy a freezer because that's the only thing I could do. So I was going to do it right. So every 3 hours, I had my alarm, day, night. We went to football matches with my older son. I asked to go to dressing room, conference room to use my electric pump. Nothing was going to stop me from pumping my milk. So I was dedicated to that to the point that they said, okay, you need to pump less often because we feel you're almost pumping for twins now. And she's only one little cell. So you're going to have to just slow down. So yeah, I gave her my milk via bottle and I breastfed her, and the milk lasted until Christmas. We came home in September. And then around October time, I just didn't feel myself. I was like, I'm not sleeping, I'm not eating great. And then everything came down, and everything was everything, as in the three miscarriages, the termination for medical reason, the ectopic, the trauma of that birth, the prematurity, and now having a rainbow baby. It just all come down.
Mm.
And I was like, I can't deal with that by myself. Like I just felt this was too much. So normally you should have a debrief probably about 8 weeks into it. And I appreciate that because she was on NICU. They wasn't probably going to do a debrief whilst I was on NICU because you don't know if you're going to go home with a baby. So that probably would have been insensitive. But I was home and it'd been a couple of months I was home and there was no debrief coming. And I was like, talking to my midwife, I was like, I mean, I need a debrief at the bare minimum. My partner still hasn't been told the story by a medical professional. I've told him the story. He's been told that I bled a lot and then I was all right. He wasn't told about CPR. He wasn't told about perimortem cesarean. Although at the time when we queried that, they were like, oh, but when you're going through emotions, you might not remember everything. And I just think deep down in my heart, if they told him I'd gone through 2 or 3 rounds of CPR, I mean, I know that sometimes men have got selective hearings, but he would have remembered that bit of information. It's not
Mm.
like I'm sending him, shop and I said, buy milk, bread, and butter, and he only hear butter and come back with butter and no milk and bread. It's not like that. It's just no. So,
I think, yeah,
and I
that's
said,
something
my
that would
mental health
stick
is
with
not
somebody,
great.
isn't it?
Pardon?
So I think that is something that would stick with somebody, you
Yeah,
know?
it would, regardless of the person. So I just think, okay. And then I'm reaching out for mental health support because I was like, I don't feel myself. I'm questioning my sanity. I'm loving this baby, but I'm grieving all my babies. And I don't want my big thing, my big guilt was like, I don't want my daughter to think that, oh, that's it, we've got a baby now. Like it's like she was never there.
Mm.
Because a rainbow baby would never be there unless you've lost a baby.
Yeah.
That's why it's called a rainbow baby. And even the word rainbow baby, I didn't want at first because I was like, the rainbow after the storm. No, she wasn't a storm. So don't call her a rainbow baby because there was no storm. No, she's just a baby. Um, so yeah, it was hard. And then I was being sent to charities, general CBT.
Hmm.
Those charity were pushing me back because they were like, you do not need general CBT, you need trauma specialist care. And it's not because we don't want to help you, but we think we cannot help you. We're not best fit to help you. And in my hospital, there was a trauma and loss specialist team. And I thought, that's my name written all over it. Like, if my obstetric history doesn't fit that bill, I don't know what will. They don't even have to meet me. They can read. Even just my last delivery alone, I think I qualified to be seen
Hmm.
by these people. But as we know for many things, you have to fill in questionnaires. And that's my big don't like it because those questionnaire, which is like GAD questionnaire, PH questionnaire, have been designed initially for people with mental health illnesses in psychiatric hospital or in mental health institutions. They've not been designed for pregnant women. They've not been designed in the postnatal period. So yes, some are relevant, but some are not relevant. And I knew that obviously there's points attached to it. And I was never scoring high enough to meet that threshold to enter this department. And I knew the questions that have the most point would be things like, do you feel suicidal? Yes or no? But the answer was no. And I totally, my heart goes out to people that do because there are women out there that wouldn't be here talking to you today because they have committed suicide. That's the reality of it. But I didn't feel like that. And I felt, I'm not going to lie about my mental health to suit your ticking box exercise because no, that's not what I'm feeling. So I was just like getting to a point where I was running out of steam. And I remember saying to one of the midwife or health visitor, you've saved my life. And we've all read those reports that says that people like me are 3, 4 times the number changes every time, but we are more times likely to die than yourself. But that goes up to 12 months after birth. So you can't just leave me like that. And plus, I'm a midwife. The job that I do, if you don't look after me and care for me in that time where I need it, how am I going to be able to ever resume my job and take on other people's, emotional um, moments? And I just cannot see how that's going to work. Um, so I managed to get my debrief. I got my debrief. We got in the room. The consultant, the lead consultant that led the operation, the whole thing was there. She was reading through a note. Obviously, it was quite methodical. You came in at that time. This happened, and halfway through, she stopped and she became white, red, all different colors. Started crying, sobbing, and
What?
she couldn't speak. And I was like, okay, this is my moment. That just like that moment where I could shout, because what that image was of me on the bed with all these people around is the image I've had many times in my life. I'm here, but no one can see me because
Mm,
Black women are often invisible, we know. So the same kind of thing, I thought, oh, this is my moment. And I said, I'm really sorry that you feel upset, which now I regret saying that, because why did I apologize for
mm,
her pain where it was my story? But, the human side in people, I said, I'm really sorry, but may I ask, why are you crying? And she said, I still remember your lifeless body, the color of your skin, everything that we've checked was indicating there was no sign of life. And I remember us moving your body from the hospital bed to the operating table before we performed the cesarean, and thinking to myself, we've lost you. And I said, so if you feel like that, which I'm not a psychologist, but can look a bit like PTSD,
mm-hmm.
what do you think I feel? How do you think I feel? How do you think my partner feels? My children, my family? And then miraculously, I was admitted and I was seen by that department, which I think the debrief had a lot to do with it,
Yeah,
because I
good.
said I said it again at the debrief. You've saved my life, but you cannot leave me there like that, sorting it out myself. Because I felt I was my best friend. I felt I was my midwife. I felt like I was my advocate. I felt like I was my sister, my own sister. I felt like I was like everything in one. And I thought, I can't carry on like that. It's not feasible. It's not
Mhm.
possible. So I had 9 months of EMDR, which is a technique in psychology that I specializes to deal with PTSD particularly. So I was diagnosed with PTSD, postnatal depression, and complex grief, because obviously I had different type of grief, and I hadn't grieved from 2018, and my daughter was born in 2022. Um, and reprogramming the mind just simply means that you acknowledge the event. So you have to go back and revisit that event. So I had to go back and sit on that operating table and see myself there. And I had to go back and see myself at the termination. But then it's safely put and well packaged in a box, and you can open that box whenever you want. But the effect shouldn't be trauma or oh my God,
Mm.
the fight or flight where you're constantly thinking something else is going to happen to me. What's going to happen to me? Um, so that was that, and I was able to resume work. And in that time, I was also seen by a charity which is called Mothers for Mothers in Bristol. And it's a companionship. They're not psychologists, they're not midwife, but it's people that come to your house and have a cup of tea with you. And I didn't even notice, but gradually I left the house, because she said afterwards, initially, I always wanted her to come to me. I wouldn't go out for a walk with a pram, or so we went for walks in pram, we went for coffees, we went to forests, we went colder water swimming. Like it was just like a sister that's not related to you, but that is just going to go at your pace, but gently push you to be in the world again, and to be smiling again, and to be feeling yourself again. And at the end of those 9 months, she said to me, my manager and I both agreed that you could be a beautiful lived experience champion for Maternal Mental Health Alliance. And me not being on the internet, me not being on social media, and me being black and thinking, what do you mean? Telling my story to everybody?
Mm.
Obviously, I'm talking to you now, so a long journey has happened since. But I was like, and then I thought, do you know what? Actually, I want things to change. I know the way things are, and I don't want my daughter to have to have died in vain, as alongside my miscarriages and my ectopic pregnancy. So I said, you've given me the confidence to now say yes to everything when it comes to talking about baby loss, putting myself out there. And unless it's super uncomfortable, I'm going to say yes to everything. And you are one of my yeses. So I became a champion. That started off by me putting my story on the internet for people to read. And yeah, I've done loads of things with them. I've done the film that you've been a part of, Making Black Women Visible with the Motherhood group. I've been to the House of Parliament. Um, I'm doing podcast. Um, so that's why I started by my beginning being, I don't ever want people to think that by me smiling or by me doing what I'm doing, that's what they have to do to be better, because we're not all going to follow that path.
Hmm.
But it's simply for them to think there could be an after that is okay, bearable. I think about it every day and it's never going to disappear. But because I've had the therapy, I can understand and make sense of it, that it's mine to remember, but also life is for the living and I need to carry on for my other children, my partner, my family, other people. And I want to break the stigma of termination, definitely, and termination for Black people. There's an element of faith
Mm.
as well, I think, that's added to it. And I think for whatever the ethnicity, is still a taboo. Um, I felt, because you feel like that at the time, that most people would disagree with my decision as opposed to comfort me. But it's probably not the reality. There's probably people out there with both the opinions.